Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today. I have no idea how many subscribers I have because I recorded this ahead of time. But shout out to all the subscribers, however many there are. And special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members Y2KHA, Brendon, Mikel, Scott, Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, Salacious, Crumb, Ryguy, and Brendon Nelson's haircut. Here's another player that I suspect most people won't be all that interested in, and with good reason, because he's not exactly a very compelling player, and it's not especially important if we keep him around or not. But he's another player who's been with the team for a couple years that has earned with his play more than a minimum or minimum plus contract, and we do need to talk about it because whatever we think about this particular player, and I don't exactly think he's all that special at all, he is still somebody that this team seems to place some value on because they keep putting him out there. They keep featuring him in the offense. They keep trying to do things with him. So I'm talking about Jacob Hollister, and we're going to be blowing through a few player comparisons and recently signed tight end contracts to try to find a good comp for Jacob Hollister. So let's take a look at Hollister in 2020. His numbers were down across the board in terms of bulk production. And I think that it was safe to say from watching him play, he wasn't as good as he was in 2019. And he wasn't exactly great in 2019 either, but he was never really meant to be a starter in the NFL anyway. So if you're going to be honest, taking a look at what he did in 2020, 25 catches, 210 yards, 3 touchdowns, caught a touchdown that sealed up winning the division in week 16. There's something to be said for that. So not terrible, but his catch percentage was down, yards per target was down, yards per reception was down. He just wasn't as productive. I'm not going to say that that was all his fault. We did sign Greg Olsen. We did use Will Dissly more. There were a few things working against him. But regardless, if you take a look at what he did in 2019 to earn the one-year deal he got from us, and you take a look at what he did in 2020, it seems a fair bet that he's probably earned a pay decrease. I mean, when you're a worse player from year to year, it makes sense that your pay should change, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at some comparisons. First, real quick, Jacob Hollister, Pro Football Focus, says 62.4, which is decent, passable, not as good as it was in 2019, but reasonably passable. So with this information in mind, let's take a look at other tight ends. So here's the list, and we are going to go ahead and skip all the way down past Jacob Hollister in 2020 because, like I said, it makes sense that Jacob Hollister, having played a worse season in 2020, would get paid less in 2021 than he did in 2020. I mean, that's just basic math and logic, right? I don't know. So let's take a look at some players to try to compare Jacob Hollister to somebody else. And this isn't going to be all that easy because Jacob Hollister is as anonymous as it gets for an NFL tight end, more or less. He's not a very good blocker. He doesn't have great hands, but his hands are okay. His blocking is semi-passable. His route running is semi-passable. He's not tiny, but he's certainly not big. He's very anonymous, but let's take a shot at this anyway. Let's start with the guy right below him on the list, Darren Fells. It's not a perfect comparison because Darren Fells actually has a long and established career as a really good NFL tight end. However, if you take a look at his most recent contract with Houston, 2 years, $6.3 million, so just over $3 million a year, we can take a look at his 2019 and see that his production this year was a good amount better than Hollister, 34 catches, 341 yards, 7 touchdowns. So yeah, he did a lot in 2019. Not one of the best tight ends in the league, but it's fair to say that he did a fair bit more than what Hollister did in 2020. So we're not there yet, but we're not that far away either in terms of the bulk stats. And if you take a look at his PFF grade, it's actually 60.1, which is pretty mediocre. So as you can see, even lackluster, mediocre tight ends do earn a couple $1,000,000 a year. So let's go past Darren Fells and scroll down a little bit, try to find the next name we can use. Logan Thomas. Last offseason signed a 2-year, $6.1 million deal, just over $3 million a year, very similar to the Darren Fells deal. So let's take a look at what Logan Thomas did in 2019 to earn this contract. He had 16 catches, 173 yards, 1 touchdown. Obviously, Logan Thomas was a bit of an interesting case because he had played quarterback in college, and there was some upside to him as a quarterback, more so for trick plays than actually playing the QB position. That probably boosted his value a little bit, but these numbers are nothing special at all. These numbers are actually, in terms of bulk, a good deal worse than what Jacob Hollister gave us in 2020. And if you take a look at his Pro Football Focus grade, 55.1, that's below average. That's downright forgettable. You may not belong in the NFL, son. So already we've kind of gotten to the Jacob Hollister range, haven't we? Real quick before we go, let's do one more just so we can get an idea here. I don't want to spend too much time on a player like a Jacob Hollister, but let's do one more guy, Josh Hill of the Saints, who signed a 3-year deal worth just under $3 million a year coming off 2018. So let's take a look at Josh Hill in 2018, and we can see he had 16 catches, very similar to what Logan Thomas did actually. 16 catches, 185 yards, 1 touchdown. Pro Football Focus grade was 55.4, very, very forgettable. So yeah, this is kind of the floor for Jacob Hollister comparisons. Like, these guys are not better than Hollister. In fact, in terms of their production and their play in these particular contract years, they're probably a little worse. So in terms of comparisons to previous tight end contracts, seems to me that Hollister should be getting somewhere around 1 year, $3 million, maybe 2 years, $6 million even. That's the market. Now, like I said with a couple other players we've already gone over, Jacob Hollister is definitely the kind of player who's going to get hurt by the cap going down. He is going to be one of those guys who had a chance to get paid, but that chance is going to, well, it's not going to be there because there's going to be less money to go around, and teams are going to 100 times out of 100 choose to pay their really good players over their roster filler that they feel like they can just replace with some undrafted rookie free agent and get 80% of the production and capability. So if you take a look at what Hollister compares to and you take a look at the cap going down and you add it all up, I'm going to say Jacob Hollister is probably going to be in line for a 1 year, $2 to $2.5 million deal with somebody. So I would prefer it to not be with us. I just would rather move on to somebody who makes less money and has more upside. But I can understand that it's a possibility that this team is going to look at Hollister and say, we want some stability at the tight end position. And while he hasn't been great, he's been relatively steady, and we feel like he can be a competent part of this offense as hopefully a third-string tight end. And you do need third-string tight ends sometimes. I would just prefer to have one making the veteran minimum. But with Hollister's play in 2020, I feel like he's going to come into about $2.5 to $2.25 million over the 1 year deal. So that's my guess. Again, it's kind of hard to predict some of these things because the cap went down for the first time in a long time. But that's my guess. Hollister gets about $2.5 million for 1 year. And I don't know if this is going to be the team to keep him, but I'm addressing it as a possibility. So I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. See you guys in streams later, hopefully. Got some things going around the house right now that may prevent me, but one way or the other, hopefully I'll be seeing you guys. Peace out.